Hello, everybody. I am here with the second in the series of Conversations with Ciara, which is an amazing honor for me to be able to speak to people who are in the wellness industry, in the healing arts, who have dedicated their lives to supporting others in their healing through traumas, through grief, through other things that have happened, and actually just as survival for life as we live in such a complex world. And today I am extremely grateful because a longtime person and healer who's been in my life, Dany Lyne, has been in Toronto, and she agreed to sit down with me to have a conversation. So we're going to chat, and you'll get to know Dany, and then I will make sure that you know where to go to find more videos and more content, and also the ability to book a session with Dany if that's something that you'd like to do. So, Dany, welcome. It's great to have you here. Thank you for sitting down with me. And just to explain, I didn't really introduce too much about what you do. Do you want to just speak for a second about your journey into healing from just at the beginning, just so we know the context and what it is that you do for others and with others?
I mean, it began with self-healing, and definitely for me, the turning point was when I discovered Reiki and later craniosacral therapy. So then with those two practices having such an impact on my life and just really allowed me to show up in the world as myself and participate with ease and with joy. So then that's what I studied initially. But then I traveled around the world and studied with healers in Africa and Central America and South America. And so by now it's like, it adds all of that, which is why I've called it Reiki++, or even being an energy Sherpa. But at this point, I've been doing it for 20 years, and I don't use my hands anymore for any of that, but I still do all of it. So
wow, that's amazing. Amazing. And I actually have been fortunate enough to have done Reiki++ with you, which I did a couple of years ago. Can you just for 1 minute, Dany, just because you can speak to this. So a lot of people, when we talk about craniosacral therapy, it's very mystical. They really don't know what it is. So if you were going to sum even that portion or that entry point for you, because I know it still comes into your work very much. What exactly is happening, and what is that?
Well, the beauty and exquisite beauty of craniosacral therapy is that it is an access point to the cerebrospinal fluid, which lives in the dural membrane. And that sac goes from the bottom of the spine all the way up and around the brain. And the cerebrospinal fluid, which is between it and the fascia, the most intelligent cells and tissue in the body, they are responsible for what's called the primary breath of life. So if your heart stops, your lung stops, and this rhythm, very subtle rhythm that happens in that environment is vibrant, you're alive. So it's called the primary breath of life. And basically, the skull does this wonderful thing in combination with the sphenoid bone, which is a butterfly up here, and then the butterfly of your hips. And the two butterflies oscillate very, very delicately, and they do it every 7 seconds. So if this one oscillates, it shifts a lot of the cerebrospinal fluid down, and then the hips receive it, and it oscillates and then swings it back up. In general, that's a 7-second process.
Wow.
And we have a lot of what's called noise in that system. So any physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual trauma will reflect in this environment, in the sense that, you know, you'll go up, and instead of flooding through the brain in a nice, smooth way, you'll start having and all of that noise in the system is what contributes to lack of focus. Certainly people who have had concussions, for instance, but any kind of trauma, because it's all related to the reptile brain and the whole endocrine system, basically, and all the beautiful chemistry of the brain, that all plays into that factor. So basically, craniosacral therapy, you're right in at the core of you could say, the organism's spark of life. And so by being at the core, the impact is wonderful, because once you liberate that environment, it will shift how biologically how you're functioning, but also then of course massive changes emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Yeah, because when you think about it, the endocrine system as well, that's, you know, that's creating the chemical releases in the body, then that's creating the emotions in the body, that's creating the experience, the perception. So it's massive. It's very important.
The beauty and the mess. It's all of it.
Yeah, amazing. And then for those people that don't understand or don't really know, because Reiki is increasingly popular, and I know firsthand that you mix your modalities at this point. You use a lot of Chinese medicine in your modalities as well, which is also helpful. We'll chat about that a bit. How would you describe to someone who really is interested, they understand, but they don't know very much about Reiki?
Well, Reiki, it can be an uneven field. I'll just give that. So sometimes people try Reiki and they go, I don't know, didn't feel anything. I think that, like everything, it's you need to find the practitioner who has enough experience.
I agree with that, because I found Dany and it was life-changing, so that's definitely true.
And Reiki is fundamentally working with the energetic body. And so for, physically, you have a physical energetic body, and then emotional, mental, and spiritual. And the Reiki will really allow the practitioner to perceive where there's imbalances and where there's frequencies that are disruptive. And it's like a bit like putting conditioner on baby's hair to take out the tangles. So basically, at a really fundamental level, you're taking out the knots and tangles in the system. And the deeper and deeper that the practitioner can operate, and work at, you get into this place of being able to even discharge what's called energy cysts. And those energy cysts are literally like a bubble in which that holds trauma, and it holds the energy, what I call the traumatized astronaut, the aspect of you who's victimized, but also the architects of survival that people refer to in IFS as the protectors. And so in that bubble, you enter a space where it's like, without radio and newspapers, that 7-year-old in you is still trapped in the experience of that terrible moment, for instance. Yeah,
and that's where I feel like, and it is very in tandem with what the harmonic egg also does, because what we're really doing is we're getting underneath. We're getting underneath when you have your cancer diagnosis or you've got some kind of chronic condition. Well, that's really the body raising the white flag, sort of saying you weren't listening to the signs, or the energy has been trapped and trapped and trapped and trapped. So by doing modalities such as Reiki, that's how you can keep those systems flowing, and then the dis-ease is never really allowed to take hold, and you're able to the best of your ability, keep that flow happening.
Correct, right? Because you need to find all the parts, is the language people like right now. You do need to track down where that dissonance is stored in the body, because the organs, and that's where the traditional Chinese medicine practice is so attuned to, is that the organs are not just doing what we think of, detoxing, I'm the liver, or producing the urine because I'm the kidneys. But the organs are teachers in our body and healers. So the kidneys are orchestrated to deal with fear. So if you have a fearful experience, that fear will be stored in the kidneys, because they're the most apt environment to heal it. But if it gets, if you keep jamming the fear in there and layers and layers and layers, then you end up with a big roadblock, and that's when you might end up with a bladder infection, or you'll just end up with a louder signal to bring your attention to that part of your body. Yeah,
it's interesting, because the way we deal in the allopathic medical model now is we compartmentalize, and then we just hone in on sort of one thing as well. But then with you saying that, someone who's having, say, chronic urinary tract infections, and then just keeps taking the antibiotics or whatever it is, you are really not doing what you need to do. And the other thought I'm actually having now, Dany, and I didn't think of this before, is that, so obviously to open and run the harmonic egg, I had to do the training and so forth. But I'm actually realizing how much of a foundation the work I'd done with you, doing the Reiki Plus was, because so many of the Chinese medicine fundamentals are also incorporated in the frequency and the organs and how we work with the body with harmonic egg. So it's really nice to see how that all comes together. I want to kind of move into speaking about your most recent history, because I think it's really relevant. It's really relevant for all of us who are continuing to heal, continuing to find those modalities that help us. And again, I would say everybody will find the modalities that really speak to them. So always go out and find those things and look for those things. And they always come in partnership with other things that we can do. Staying hydrated, eating as well and as clean as possible, having, being in gratitude, taking the time to walk in nature, to find some kind of a mindfulness practice is always helpful. Even if you only have a few minutes, it's a wonderful thing to do. So, and very helpful. So what I want to switch to is in 2022. So we're going to go back a few years, and it was really around the time that I was also dealing with all of the challenging things with my son Oshin, as this audience will know. And also throughout that experience, I will say that Dany was an essential piece of that experience, an essential healer, an essential partner. I don't know how I would have gotten through it spiritually, emotionally, physically as well, without being able to check in with Dany. Oshin was seeing Dany. It gave us a two-layered approach to what was happening. There was obviously the very serious allopathic medical stuff, and again, very grateful to those systems that were able to offer that to us. But I felt so privileged and honored that at the same time we were also doing all of this other stuff that was really supporting his nervous system, because Oshin's tumor was in his brainstem. So all of that was extremely helpful. And then suddenly, at the very end of Oshin's life, when we were very caught up, Dany ended up in her own experience of tremendous trauma. So why don't we just speak to that a little bit, and then we'll talk about your pathway through that, because I think it's really amazing.
Yeah, it's well, I was going 10K, and I just plunged to the ground and hit my knee at the worst possible angle, and basically my tibia broke in 6 pieces.
Wow. And were you were on a bicycle at the time?
Yeah, I was on an electric bike, and I was hit by a bicycle.
Okay.
In a biking lane, going in a straight line. Like, it's just the most banal. There is no story there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, because I was hit from behind, so I have no idea why the other cyclist didn't see me or what have you. But the thing is that
6 places.
Yeah, it was like a fireworks explosion. So they were for 24 hours quite worried that they'd have to amputate my leg. So we got past that whole process.
Wow.
But then it was really a process of waiting for surgery, having surgery, getting a whole bunch of metal in there to put all the pieces together. And then I find myself at Bridgepoint Hospital for months. And so
and by the way, so just so everyone knows, at this time Dany didn't live in Toronto.
No.
She was visiting. She lived in Costa Rica.
I had left Costa Rica, and I was on my way to live in India.
That's
I was
right.
Totally in transit.
So stop. This is one of those examples where life just stops you and decides, no, you're not doing what you think you're doing. This is all happening for you, not that you've planned it, but yeah. So then you're in Bridgepoint.
Yeah, I think what was relevant for me is that even though I had a cast from my hip to my ankle, I'd been a yoga practitioner for decades, and I realized that my flexibility was one of my greatest assets, because I could dress myself very quickly, because I could reach past my toes. And I did yin yoga in my hospital bed. Everybody thought I was crazy, but it really made a difference. And then basically within 2 weeks, I cut out all the drugs. So I refused to take any painkillers.
Wow.
I stopped the morphine, the hydromorphone, the everything. And
now, let me just stop you there. How much convincing did it take for you to convince the medical staff to allow you to even do that? Because that must have been in itself a little bit of a...
Initially, I put them in my mouth and then spit them out in the drawer when they left the room.
Okay.
Because they wouldn't let me.
Right.
But eventually, I fessed up, showed them the pile, and said, look, either we're going to just be straight up with each other.
Good for you.
This is what we're doing here.
This is what it takes.
Yeah. I had a water filter, the Berkey from England, set up in the hospital, so I had quality water.
Yeah.
I ordered organic chicken broth, and I got, you can, now when you're in hospital, you can order on Amazon. I don't want to advertise for Amazon, but you can order things. So it's not like, so I got a little pot, and I would make my own food, and I thought I need a lot of greens, which you don't get. Bridgepoint food is okay, but not, So then I suddenly thought I'm gonna get seaweed. So I had a Japanese friend just shop for so then it's, I had vegetables in my room even though they were dried. So I made my own soups, and that made a big difference. And then...
And food is energy, everybody. It's like energy.
And I
essential.
had a green drink and a red drink. The store decided they would deliver to my room even when they heard my story.
Wow.
So I really monitored my diet, and then I realized my meditation practice, even though I'd been meditating for a couple of decades, I realized I didn't have the meditation practice to climb over my pain. This level of physical pain was really extreme. But there's nothing like a lot of pain for you to just start learning a different technique.
This is amazing.
And really it was all about desensitizing my system, so that it's like, oh, okay, there's that sensation, but that sensation doesn't mean that anything's wrong. And that was the big trick. That's huge. Because once if you keep thinking the pain means something's wrong, then it's a whole other neurological fireworks event. And it even went when I left the hospital, and the weather was getting colder in Toronto, and anybody who's had this kind of thing, the metal in wherever in your body gets colder faster than your bones, or it gets hotter faster than your bones. And people say, well, the changes in temperature hurt me. It's actually just the simple fact that the metal is reacting differently, and your body goes into high alert. So I basically had a friend take me to the Russian spa, and I did sauna, hot, cold, until my body got bored. Literally my brain got bored with the signal that everything's okay, and I stopped having that reaction. Wow. So I was really proactive.
Yeah, and now I have to say, of all the people I've ever met in my life, Dany is one of the most hardcore, the most able to do this kind of stuff. I mean, it takes a lot of determination and really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Will.
Just will. Yeah. But it just goes, you're like Wim Hof in a way, right? It just goes to show you, when we do overcome those things, and our perception of things is magnificently important. And I've come to understand that in my grief journey. It's transformed how I perceive of it. Doesn't take anything away. You're still living through it. You're still figuring it out. But it absolutely, utterly makes it a different experience. And it would have been if you're in this is happening to me, poor me, I'm totally, I can't do anything about it. But the wherewithal to know too, because we're getting into very deep spiritual practice here we're getting into where we need to go as a species right now, where you're really cutting out the judgment, you're really cutting out the separation, and you knew that inherently in your own body. Your own brain. You had to train your own brain to
that's
stop.
Exactly what I was doing. And the thing is that in moments like that, you gotta, rather than think of what you've lost, you have to think about what you have. So I very quickly realized I was in a yoga body. I might be a one-legged yogi at this point, but I thought I have the yoga body, so keep the yoga body going. The other thing that I have is I'm a fish. I love water. I love swimming. That's been my form of exercise. Bridgepoint wasn't letting me into their pool, so I called Mount Sinai, and I got in touch with the department, and I said to the surgeon, can you write me a prescription for the pool? Wow. He was like, I've never done that. I said, what do you lose? What do you got to lose? Just write me a prescription
how much you had
for
to
the pool.
advocate for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And then so finally I got in the pool.
Yeah.
And with the, and they were like, but you can't, you have a brace. I was like, I've already bought a second brace, one for the pool and one for outside the pool.
Wow.
So if it gets wrecked, it just gets wrecked. That's the pool brace.
Yeah.
So I did Bridgepoint Pool. I kept doing therapy there as an outpatient. And then I went to that wonderful children's hospital up north into their pool.
Yeah, Bloorview. That's where Oisin was.
Okay.
Holland Bloorview.
Okay, Holland
Oisin and I used to
Bloorview.
go in the pool when he was ill.
Yes,
together.
and I did and I was doing Aquafit 3 times a week. But even with the brace, because then I decided you have to set all pride aside.
Yeah.
I'm a very good swimmer, but what I did is I put, I got an orange, I love the color orange, so I got an inflatable orange donut.
Yeah.
So that when I was swimming, I wasn't carrying my leg. And, I could just swim.
Yeah.
And then the brace could follow me, and that was being taken care by the floaters.
Yeah.
So within 2 months, I was already swimming 1 kilometer a day.
Wow, Dany,
Yeah,
that's
because I
amazing.
thought if I lose my cardio,
Yeah.
if I lose my strength and my muscles, like how am I gonna, because I had to relearn how to walk.
Yeah.
And so I
incredible.
kept the muscles alive, the flexibility alive. I did the pain. I mean, you're sitting in hospital. You might as well do something with
Well,
your time.
actually, yeah. So let's just go back
Yeah.
to the Reiki for a minute, because
Yeah.
I know you were doing self Reiki throughout this. So
Absolutely.
how did that come into play when you were in
The
healing?
Reiki really helped release. I had trauma because the ketamine really freaked me out, because as a practitioner, I've worked with ketamine addiction.
Yeah.
So the fact, it was a huge thing for me to put ketamine in my body, because I knew it intimately through my clients and folks over the years, and so I was horrified by this.
Yeah.
So anyway, all of that, the surgery trauma, the accident trauma, all the impacts, because the leg hit the, all the different places. And then the complexity and the subtlety of where I was storing what trauma, because in an accident you easily have 10 beats, then plus the ambulance, plus the thing of the amputation. So I did keep up with that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's
yeah.
incredible.
And I had a friend also who was coming to the hospital and every night would do Reiki, distance Reiki. So that would help to have that energy
That's amazing.
as well. Yeah.
One other thing that actually happened for my family, happened for me, and it also happened for Dany, and this is essential, is that for both of us going through this experience, what it did was it opened up this community to each of us, and then we understood the power of other people's love and the power of other people's care, and the fact that we could ask other people for support in a different way. And that is incredible. And for me, in many ways, that has blossomed into the Unity Studio, because that allowed me to understand just human relationships and the power of energy together in a different way. For you, it's blossomed into something else. You want to speak a little bit about how what happened there?
Well, basically, I don't know who I texted, because the last thing I did before my accident was pick up my reading glasses, but they put my distance prescription in them.
Oh.
So I'm going through all this and I can't see anything, and I'm just pressing on my phone. So anyway, I texted somebody, and it was a client, it turned out, and she started spreading the word. And within 2 days, there were 45 people in a WhatsApp group.
Well, I've got chills right now.
It
I'm in this
was
WhatsApp
incredible.
group now. So, yeah.
And I'm someone without, I've had a lot of childhood abuse. I don't have a family of origin that's still in my life. And I had, a lot of my friends during COVID had moved away. And the 2 friends left were on holiday.
Wow.
So suddenly, I've got this group that, I remember I realized my roommate was using my toothbrush, and I just said, look, I think I really need a toothbrush. And then one of the 45 people would say, I'm driving by the hospital tonight. I can do it on my way, on my way back
it's
home.
amazing. And then what happens is you different people come through in different ways, and those relationships shift and change, and
Completely.
then right. The same thing happened with us and for us, and I've had people that went away for a bit, then they came back, and that was because they couldn't handle certain aspects of things, but they could handle other aspects, a whole bunch of things. So, that's really amazing. And so also when this happened to Dany, it was, as I said at the beginning, like literally while Oisin was in his last 3 weeks. So I I wasn't there initially, but then after about 3 weeks, I remember you saying, listen, this has happened, because I connected back with you. I don't remember the details either myself, but ended up becoming part of this group, which is still going, we can say.
Yes.
And it also blossomed into what you're doing and where you are now. So Dany has not only come through this adversity physically, she also managed to come through the adversity, and while coming through the adversity, move across the world, first to India, as she's traveled all over, and then she ended up eventually landing in Bali in Ubud. Am I saying that correctly? Yeah. And so now, Dany's been a digital nomad for quite a while.
5 years.
5 years, yeah. So just before this all happened. But now let's talk a little bit about the Energy Collective.
Well, the thing is while I was learning how to walk again, which was quite an enterprise, I was like, okay, so if and like when I start working again, this whole idea of the therapist and the so-called client's model, and in theater we'd call that the fourth wall. I was like, there is no fourth wall. That all these people that I've been working with, and really I realized just living life together in and offering each other at this point that kind of support. I thought, this is a community. This is not a client base, or
Yeah.
And I just thought, I can't ever look at my practice the same. I can't ever also look at the same exchange, the financial exchange. I just thought, I don't want it to be tied to, I give you this much money and then you do me for an hour, sort of almost feeling. And so somebody who's now in the collective and has been like really around in the community for years said, I'm a business person, I know how to do this. It's a membership system. Because I kept saying the money has to flow differently. That was one piece. And so he said, you need to switch to this membership system. And the minute he said that, it's like my hair finally went down. Like I just could relax with that. And then I was like, okay. And then it's, how do we work together as a group? Because yes, we have traumas that are very individual, but I would say at this point, easily 60 to 70% of the dissonance that we carry is what we carry by the fact that we live in this time, in this moment in history, and with all of its stuff.
Yeah.
That there is systemic dissonance that we all share. Everybody keeps coming into a session thinking they're utterly unique, and I totally believe they are unique.
Yeah.
But a huge portion of what they're experiencing is a huge portion of the other members of the collective. So people will say when I do a transmission they go, you're talking to me, right? And I was like,
no.
No.
Yeah, and attest to that, like constantly.
It hits
amazing.
that nerve where you think, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm going through. But then you have 30 people going, like this. And then you realize there is also not only this dissonance, the disharmony in the world, but there's also this flow of energy that we're all in. We call it the moon and the tides, and call it astrology, and all of that. It's all connected. And for me, it's very elemental. So I work with the elements. So we're all in this flow of how the elements are in particular expressing at this time. And the elements are the building blocks of life. It's what make us and our everything.
And it makes perfect sense because here we are part of Gaia, right? We're connected to Gaia, we're Gaia's consciousness, Gaia, so the elements really appeals to me as well. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, having been part of the collective and part of the membership since the very beginning, you come to look forward to your transmissions. Your transmissions have grown. You've been connecting with different people throughout that time, and they become talismans for us to help us, guide us. And literally, we were being guided down the river since I can't remember how long, if it was late fall or if it happened in the beginning of winter. Anyway, it ends up being such an essential piece to understanding what the general energy is that we're going through. And I think particularly for me, part of the reason why I set up the Unity Studio is I believe in unity consciousness. I believe in the ascension. I know that we're in it now. And this is May 12th, 2025. So there's a big full moon today. And we're moving fast forward now. And as part of that, lots of things are flowing more quickly. Lots of things are coming up to be healed. Lots of things are transforming. And to have a place to go where you feel like in community we're actually holding each other, and this has been a great time. Dany's been here for a few weeks. We've had some opportunities to actually get together in real time, you know, and share meals together and so forth, all to grow, because you realize that ends up just expanding. So let's talk a little bit, Dany. We have a little bit of time left. In that last 5 minutes, can we speak a little bit to how possibly this experience you've gone through has even opened you up more, because you've always been connected. Even when you were working with me way back in 2012, I know that you were channeling. You were a Reiki master, so obviously you were, but there seems to have been a blossoming for you even in your transmissions, in your connection, in what you've been able to, riding the wave, I suppose, to take your language actually. And so explain just before we leave, and then Dany will tell us how you can connect to the Energy Collective and to her. How has that come with everything? How has that moved forward?
When I work in sessions one-on-one, I am channeling, but my focus is entirely on the person.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like going, so, you know, who are you? Like, I have a team. I know they're doing it. Sometimes someone specific comes in particular. My channel is super clean, so I'm not expecting any interference.
Yeah.
I do what I need to do for that. So it's a team, and I know who's there, and some might come into focus with a particular message. But in general, I'm just watching what they're doing, and I'm just keeping the focus as the facilitator, right? To transfer the formless to the form. I'm sort of a transmitter. That's all I am, really, with an amazing concentration level, basically.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm channeling for a group, the group becomes one body, but what it's offering me the opportunity to do is actually hang out with who's back there. So it's allowed me to deepen my relationship with individuals. I do tend to channel one person at a time. There might be 2 or 3 at the most if it's a party, but I don't, it's, you know, they're not all connected. Like some people work with a group that stay connected and speak as one voice.
Yeah.
No, I'm speaking to this yogi and that yogi.
And in particular, you tend to channel yogis. Like,
I have a thing, I don't know, and that I would say right now.
And elementals.
The elementals and the yogis are definitely where it's at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's had different, India features big.
Yeah.
So,
well, it makes sense because it's very much connected to where you've been placing your energy and where you've been going on pilgrimages and where you've been connecting yourself to, and we get to benefit from that because Dany also, just so you all know, creates these beautiful videos where they're not just the transmission, but she'll do these introductions where she's literally taking us down the road in Bali or taking us into the shrines, into the temples, and we're really getting a flavor for the culture and for the experiences that she's having. And she will also do transmissions from those spaces. What do you call those again, Dany? Those
the impromptus.
The impromptus, yeah. And they're very much influenced by that. So it's an education as well, which I really actually absolutely love. And I even remember, and you've done it a few times, it was actually, you did a transmission, it was on the day of, or maybe the day after, the first anniversary of Oshin's passing. And that was when you channeled the Mount Agun. And he came in for a little bit in that transmission, actually, you know, which was really interesting. That I love and have felt this myself. I'll sometimes go to Lake Ontario if I need an answer, and I'll go and I'll put my feet in the water and I'll sit with her and I'll allow her to give me the information that I need, you know. And I think we really all have to start practicing this and start understanding that there is no separation. There's no separation between all of these aspects of the world.
And that they have a consciousness.
Yes.
It's not just us walking around with a consciousness, that these big volcanoes and these lakes and every stream has a consciousness.
Yeah, and it's there for us, you know, and you know what, that's what's kind of exciting about this time in history. As slow as it's happening, we are slowly beginning to unveil and remember the true depth and the true magic of the universe.
Yeah, and in general, we can speak out loud about these things and not be threatened.
Exactly, and I think there was a point where many people who are already speaking about these things were afraid to, because we were all recovering from past incarnations where we might have actually lost our head or whatever that was, or been burnt at the stake or whatever, for speaking this. So that's a huge wave, and again, like even us sitting here having this conversation, opening this business, it's great. You know, we're all dancing around in joy for the freedom to be able to do so. And then, you know, the Unity Studio for me is a place to kind of catch people as they begin to awaken, because when you do first begin to awaken, it's quite terrifying. It's like, it's really disconcerting, because I always like liken it to like if you were in a cruise ship and it was underwater and you thought that was reality, and then it flips the other way and suddenly you see the blue sky and you see you're like, this is the truth, like what, this is it, you know? Yeah. And then that comes with anger, it comes with, like, you've got to get through all those stages of it. It's like the stages of grief. So Dany, I would love for you to just share how people can join the Energy Collective or work with you one-on-one, just so if anybody who is connected to the Unity Studio and seeing this is interested, they could also connect with you.
Thank you, Ciara. You can reach me on my website. I've made it simple. It's just my name, so DanyLyne.com. And my YouTube channel is a great way to get a feel for me, you know, in action. And it's free for all. And so my YouTube channel is also just my name, DanyLyne. And so I think with those two channels, you'll be able to track down. There's information on my website about the collective, and breaking down the different aspects that we'll touch on. And the thing that when you have a membership, the thing to remember is that every transmission is in an archive, and so you gain access to the archive. Yeah. And you know, it's all presented in such a way that you have the synopsis of each video, so that if you've got something going on, you can look through the archive, and there are resources there that can touch you in that moment. It doesn't only live in the specific moment. Absolutely. That it still transfers as well. Yeah. And all the impromptus are there. So Cambodia. That's great. Indonesia.
So much wisdom Bali, and knowledge. India. Amazing. Yeah. And the other thing I'll say is that, and if you can't catch it live, because sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, it's still actually in quantum entanglement. It will still, Dany does actually some healing within the transmissions, but also you can always access it afterwards as well. Correct. So Dany, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Ciara, and it's so beautiful. Ciara hosted our gatherings, and so the whole group, we're so grateful for your generosity, for offering us this space, and even your home on the first one. So thank you, and it's so great to be here looking at each other's eyes so many years later and go, oh, and here we are.
Yeah, it's great. And you know, you can consider the Unity Studio to be the home base for the Energy Collective in Toronto whenever you're here. So thank you so much, Dany. And now I'm going to get Dany to try the harmonic egg. So we'll see how that goes.
Keep you posted.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.